how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to do another chatty reading wrap-up. This one is going to be for October and November. And the tea of today, or rather tonight, because I'm filming this in the middle of the night, is hibiscus with strawberry and pink pepper flavor. I've never even seen pink pepper. This one is one of my favorites though, so I drink it very often. Tell me what you're drinking right now. Without further ado, let's get to those books because there are plenty of them. The first one that I finished in October was Heartless by Gail Carriger, and I even have a physical copy. It never happens. Anyway, this book I talked briefly about in my September reading wrap-up, and if you've seen it and remember it, I said that I'm enjoying it, but I have some issues with it. My biggest beef with this book is that I can take it away from the series, which is only 5 books long, if you're comparing it to other urban fantasies or romance series, and nothing is going to change. Nothing. It's not going to affect the overarching plot, and it doesn't contribute anything to it. So what was the reason? What was the point? I don't think there was a point. It actually felt like Gail Carriger is a bit tired of 𝔻𝔻𝕋𝕀𝕆ℕ𝕊, who's the protagonist in this book, and doesn't want to write about her because she spent a lot of time talking about secondary characters whom, to be fair, I really love. I love Lyle. He got a really good chunk of this book. He's the second in command, the beta in 𝔻𝔻𝕻𝕋 and Lord McQuiston's pack, and we've been given some bits and pieces about his past in the previous books, so hearing his whole story was very nice, but, and that's a big but, this book is filler, and that is a problem for me in series that are this small. I can't believe I'm calling a book series that has 5 books in it small, but for these types of genres it's a relatively small series, so I don't even know. I feel like this book did not deliver what it was supposed to deliver. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like it's the weakest one in the series. The strongest one so far, I think, is 𝕊𝕆ℕ�ဍ, which was the 3rd book in the series. The 5th book is called 𝕊𝕆ℕ�ဍ. I'm looking it up in the back. And I'm really excited for it because I want to finally finish the series and be proud of myself for finishing something. 𝕊𝕆ℕ�ဍ features Egypt in the background, and I'm really pumped for that. There are reasons why they can go to Egypt because 𝔻𝔻𝕻𝕋's history, or rather her species' history, is connected to ancient Egypt. And if you're a 90s baby, you're going to relate. When I was a kid, there were 2 really popular hobbies among children. The first one being dinosaurs, and the second one, ancient Egypt. You guessed it. I was in the ancient Egypt team, so everything Egypt fascinated me. I love the history, the lore, the religion. I've read so many books on Egypt, and also really love the mummy. Obviously, it's not accurate in any way, but still love it. Everyone loves it. It's bisexual. I don't make the rules. I'm actually a lesbian, but this one, the mummy, is for the bisexuals. Heartless, didn't love it. 𝕊𝕆ℕ�ဍ, have high expectations for it. And we're moving to ebooks, audiobooks, because that's how I consume most of my books. After Heartless, I started listening to Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead, which is a book that I've read before at the start of my booktubing career, but I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars. This time, the experience was a bit better, and I've read 3 books in the series through audio because I was preparing for the most iconic, the most grandiose video on my channel ever, which is my Vampire Academy analysis video. If you have not seen it yet, go watch it. I encourage you to do it right now. Click off this video, go watch that other one video. And if you've seen it, watch it again because it deserves a second viewing. What I want to add to my analysis video about the series overall is that I was very surprised for two reasons. The first one being Richelle Mead is very brave. She explored complex, dark topics that the young adult authors of today are not even sure are appropriate for teenagers, which is bullshit. Topics such as slut-shaming, misogyny, mental health, therapy, drug use, alcohol use. I was very excited about the series and kept reading it for those reasons. But it's obviously not ideal, and by ideal I mean my subjective perspective of what is ideal. All the reviews of books that I do here are subjective. I'm not even trying to be objective, not interested in that, because that would be boring and also not sure if it's even possible. The romantic relationships in these books are mostly dated. I'm talking about a big age gap between Rose and Dmitri. They're also student and mentor, so it's kind of And the second thing is some of the love interests are a bit cliche and a bit tired. I'm talking about the second love interest Rose has later in the books. His name escapes me. It's not without flaws, in my opinion. The second thing that surprised me is that the books get significantly better with each one. I kind of thought that they're all going to be around 3 stars, but while the first book is kind of basic, the third book, Shadow Kiss, is actually a banger. I feel like this is the point where the series takes a turn and becomes really, really exciting. Expect a part 2 of my Vampire Academy analysis in a few months. I'm not binge reading these books, that's a bit too much for me, but it is gonna happen at some point. I also finally collected myself and read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. It was genius. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was everything. Honestly, the first 80%, I was thinking of giving it 4 stars, but then the last 20% won me over. This book is a poem to New York City, specifically to Brooklyn. Casey McQuiston definitely loves it and romanticizes it in this book, and honestly, I just love reading a book when I feel like the author really loves the place where it's set. I feel like every single book that I've read that had this vibe was very special. I'm not going to lie, I was very hesitant going into One Last Stop because it has 2 tropes that I really hate. The first one being time travel and time loops specifically. Hate time loops. Hate them. But I actually love this trope in this book. And the second trope that I hate is amnesia trope. In this book though, ate it up. Because it's Casey McQuiston. I feel like some authors just can break the spell for you. They can just use a trope in a different way and make it palatable, make it enjoyable. That is what Casey McQuiston did for me with One Last Stop. I love both August and Jane. I related a lot to August in certain moments, and I feel like August's past as a teeny bop detective really helped with the story and also was very original and fun. When it comes to Jane, obviously I'm obsessed with her because Casey McQuiston writes the most perfect love interest. I don't know why I think Jane is a love interest. They both had point of views. I feel like it's because she is introduced after August. Anyway, with Jane, I obviously love her because she's everything and more. Casey McQuiston could have fallen into a trap of making her too much of a manic pixie dream girl because we see her through August for the first time and August is lovesick. The girl has a heart. She's so obsessed and I completely get her. I get her. I also got so much complexity from Jane when she finally breaks and shows that she's not this perfect, happy-go-lucky, helpful, righteous person. I'm crying. I'm obsessed with Jane. I'm obsessed with Jane now. I feel like she's one of the best love interests that I've ever read about. The sex scenes in this book were top-notch. I was worried about them because the premise of this book is that August moves to New York City and meets a girl, Jane, on the train. Jane is actually stuck in a loop. She can't really leave the train, and August is helping her investigate why and what they can do to finally release her. So as you can imagine, the only place where they could have sex is on the subway. I'm not a big fan of voyeurism, so I was concerned. I was very concerned, and I loved it. I don't want to spoil it because it's an experience. I've read it a couple of times, I'm not going to lie. It's very well written and it's very hot. So the thing that I also found silly and that filled me with so much joy is how they decided to go about the investigation. They figured out that when Jane experiences things she experienced in the past, she starts remembering stuff. So at some point they decide that they need to kiss so Jane would remember a girl she dated in the past. It's genius. I love it. I love it. I love this book. There were certain things about it that I can critique. For example, August got it really easy with all the other stuff. She just moved to New York and she immediately got a really fun group of friends, an apartment, a job. Her uni was going well, although she was not attending it much. But I can forgive it because it gave me so much warmth and love and happiness. It is a very hearty story and I loved it, and it's one of my favorites now. After One Last Stop, I dived into the Smutathon week. Smutathon is a readathon for adult romances with steamy scenes. The first book that I read for that week, and I also filmed a video if you want to check it out, I'm going to link it, was extremely disappointing, especially comparing to One Last Stop. I'm not even going to compare to One Last Stop because I would be tempted to, I don't know, give it minus 100 stars or something. So the book that I read was a lesbian vampire novella. It was Darkness Falls by Shannon Ellison. This book is a fucking mess. It does not deliver on its promises. In the title, it says that it is Forbidden First-Time Vampire FF Romance, Lesbian Romance. Just so you understand, there were 2 sex scenes in this. It's a novella. 2 sex scenes between the protagonist named Inga and 2 random dudes. Well, I guess one of them was not random, he was her boyfriend. The second one was a random old dude. And I just why? I feel like I was deceived because it says lesbian romance in the fucking title. In the title. I'm so pissed off about it still. I'm more upset about it because the premise was interesting and the plot was actually giving. I really enjoyed it at the start, really enjoyed the synopsis, the premise. It was about a girl named Inga who was a forensic student and who lived in 𝕊𝕼𝕋 in Sweden. I love books set in non-English speaking countries. She goes to one of her classes and her teacher wheels in a body of a woman for them to examine, I guess, or dissect. And this woman starts appearing everywhere after this lesson. So she's risen, she's a vampire. Love the premise. And it ends well with Inga and the vampire together. So it is a romance, but also I'm incredibly disappointed because this book lied to me. So I think I gave it 1 star. Honestly, I want to give it minus 10. I want to tank it completely. The second book that I read for Smutathon was also a novella, and this one was good. But I need to give you a forewarning. It's an erotic romance, so it has a lot of steamy sex scenes. The book is Forbidden, Seducing the Shrink by Aidan Fairbanks. It's a taboo romance between a patient and a therapist, and I ate it up. The protagonist is, I think, of age, but is still very young and is sent by her mother to therapy because she seduces and sleeps with her mother's friend. So she sleeps with an older woman. She's not especially just about therapy, but her mother threatens to kick her out and not support her financially anymore. So she goes, and she finds that she's really attracted to her therapist. I was obsessed with this concept. It's just good. And also it reminded me of Gypsy, the TV show on Netflix that was cancelled. The protagonist decides to use this opportunity to seduce her therapist and to tell her about her fantasies, to tell her about all the experiences she had with other women. I stand. The plot sometimes was not the best, but the concept really got me going and I enjoyed it, and I think that is the point of Smutathon, to read some smut. The last book that I read for Smutathon was Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, which was a very cozy, very atmospheric, witchy romance. I really liked it. About 10 years ago, the protagonist moved to a bigger city from her small town because she felt humiliated and broken by this guy that she dated in high school. She comes from a family of witches, and this town has 4 of them. The guy was the member of one of the families, which is the strongest and most revered. At the start of the novel, she comes back to see her family and to be an arbiter in this big games that happen one time in a few years between magical families. She's reunited with her parents and best friend, who tells her that she also dated this guy that we've talked about a bit earlier, and she's also heartbroken now. Also, there's a third girl named Talia. That's the only name that I remember. From the Thorpe family, she also dated the guy, and she's also heartbroken. So they decide to band together and set up the games this way, so one of their families is going to win, to basically avenge themselves. I feel like my description is not being fair to the book. It all makes sense in the book. It's just me, I'm getting tired. The most interesting thing is that the protagonist falls for Talia, and Talia falls for her. So it's very John Tucker Must Die, and I finally get more than a kiss. It's a fun novel, it's dynamic. I feel like it has a bit more plot than romance novels have usually, so that might be a turn off for some people. I've read it with an open mind. I was ready to accept it as a contemporary fantasy. I was ready to accept it as a romance, so I didn't feel like I was lied to. I really enjoyed the main couple. I loved the familial relationships, the friendships, but what I loved the most about this book is the 𝕊𝕍𝕋𝕍, which is the name of the town. I want to go there for Halloween. Every single store has a Halloweenish, witchy vibe to it. The names are really fun. It seems like a blast. It seems like a place to be. It sounds like freaking Disneyland with magic. So, of course, I want to be there. The last book that I read in November was But Against Me by Fiona Riley. And this one was so good. I gave it 4 stars, but I have really high hopes for Fiona Riley in general. It's the first book that I'm picking up by her, and I was really happy with it. The story follows 2 women. Both of them work in luxury real estate. They're from warring agencies, and they're fighting for the position of the best agent of the year. One of them is a workaholic. She really wants the prize, and she is pretty confident that she's going to get it. The second one, I think her name was Kendall, is a newbie. She came to the city recently, but she has a background in real estate because her father owned a real estate agency before he was sent to jail for laundering money or something. She cuts herself from her parents and wants to build a career of her own, and she actually wins the prize. The first girlie figures out that Kendall has a connection to her father, or rather that this famous dude is her father, and she is pissed off. They get into a fight. Kendall is dragged through the mud and accused of nepotism to prove that she can do things on her own and that she was not helped in any way. She, or I guess someone else connected to these agencies, proposes a big bet. There's a recently built luxury apartment complex that is given to one of the agencies to sell, but the owners decided they're going to split it and allow their agents to show their worth. The person that is going to sell the most condos is going to win. So it is rivals to lovers. They do dislike each other at first, but there's electric sexual chemistry between them. I took 1 star only because in certain scenes I didn't like the lingo when it came to private parts, but the romance was really good. The characters were very fleshed out. I was very invested, and it had so many scenes that were extremely hot. At some point they end up in a golf club in the changing rooms, and while other people are changing in the other part of the room, they are making out and teasing each other. And it was so good. It was really good. I need to read more Fiona Riley. So according to my Goodreads, this is it. Tell me what you read in October and November. Tell me what you've read recently and enjoyed. Share some recommendations because I always want them. If you reach this part of the video, leave an emoji of a teacup or a coffee cup, whatever you prefer, in the comments down below to support me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another one. But until then,